In the dim glow of a Pittsburgh radio studio, the warm, resonant voice of host Daniel Pierce cut through the stillness of the late-night air, carrying a spark of anticipation to listeners across the city. Leaning close to the microphone, his eyes glinted with excitement, a faint smile playing on his lips as he prepared to unveil a story that promised to captivate. "Good evening, dear listeners," Daniel began, his tone rich with warmth. "I'm Daniel Pierce, and you're tuned into Midnight Confessions on WPGH Radio. Tonight, we're honored to welcome a guest whose presence commands attention, a man standing 6'5", with silver-streaked hair framing a chiseled face, ocean blue eyes that seem to hold 1,000 secrets, and a square jaw radiating rugged charm. He's donned a stylish fedora, a perfectly knotted tie, and cowboy boots polished to a mirror shine, as if he's just stepped out of a Western legend. By now, you've likely guessed our guest. Please welcome the renowned defense attorney, Michael Grayson. Just last week, he secured a stunning victory defending Iowa Governor Laura Bennett in a high-profile case that gripped the nation, where she was accused of fatally shooting her husband on live television. Michael Grayson leaned forward, his calm smile exuding confidence. "Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here." Daniel's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That sharp suit and those cowboy boots, your lucky charms for winning Governor Bennett's case?" Michael chuckled, his deep voice carrying a hint of amusement. "I'd like to think so, but the real credit goes to the jury. They saw the truth, not just my wardrobe." "Oh, you're too modest," Daniel said, grinning. "You guided that jury to the truth, didn't you?" "I just did my job," Michael replied, his tone humble but firm, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of pride. Daniel leaned closer, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Our listeners are thrilled to know you're in Pittsburgh promoting your memoir, Unrivaled Defense. A reminder, you can meet Michael Grayson in person tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. at Riverfront Books on Carson Street for a signing." Michael nodded, his smile warm. "I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. Come by for a signature and a chat." "How's the book doing?" Daniel asked, his tone eager. "It's holding strong at number 4 on the bestseller list this week," Michael said, his voice tinged with gratitude. "I'm overwhelmed by the support." "Congratulations. It's well-deserved," Daniel said. "The stories in Unrivaled Defense are vivid, gripping, impossible to put down." Michael bowed his head slightly. "Thank you. I wrote it to share the challenges, pressures, and triumphs of being a defense attorney in high-stakes cases." "You nailed it," Daniel said. "The chapter on your battle against the dental implant giant, MediSmile, securing a $40 million settlement, had me on the edge of my seat." "My clients deserve justice," Michael said, his voice steady. "Uncovering MediSmile's use of toxic materials in their implants was a grim revelation, but it drove me to fight harder." Daniel laughed, his excitement infectious. "You stood in that courtroom like a gunslinger in the Wild West, facing down those corporate sharks. Your opponents must have been shaking in their loafers." Michael shook his head, a shadow crossing his face. "Not quite, Daniel. They were formidable, and I've had my share of moments where I was the one shaken." "Oh, come on," Daniel teased. "You're like a young gunslinger taking on the old masters, proving your mettle in the courtroom corral." Michael's smile was tinged with melancholy. "I've lost plenty of battles, too. Those losses are in the book, raw and unfiltered." "Are you talking about the Chicago strangling case?" Daniel asked, his voice lowering with intrigue. Michael nodded, his gaze distant. "That's one of them. I was outmaneuvered by a brilliant young attorney." "You mean David Tran, now governor of Illinois?" Daniel pressed. "The very one," Michael said, a wry smile forming. "David still thanks me for that case. Beating me launched his career." "Was losing to David your toughest defeat?" Daniel asked, his tone gentle but probing. Michael's hands clasped tightly, his voice heavy with reflection. "It was a hard one, Daniel, but not the worst." Daniel's eyebrows shot up, his curiosity piqued. "Really? Then what was your most bitter loss?" Michael hesitated, his jaw tightening as if wrestling with a memory he'd buried deep. "You're right that David's case was high profile, but the one who truly humbled me wasn't even a lawyer. He was a criminal." Daniel nearly leapt from his chair, his voice rising with astonishment. "A criminal? You're pulling my leg." Michael shook his head, his eyes dark with resolve. "No joke. He was a convict, self-taught in law from a tattered prison book. He refused a court-appointed lawyer and defended himself. I called him the convict counselor. A scoundrel, but cunning beyond belief. This is wild, Daniel exclaimed. You didn't include this in unrivaled defense? I didn't, Michael admitted, his voice low. It's a wound I've carried, a stain on my career. Thinking back still stings. I lost because I underestimated him. Daniel leaned in, his voice urgent. Michael, you got to share this story. Our listeners are dying to know how a criminal outsmarted a legend like you. Michael's smile was bittersweet, his gaze lost in the past. All right, Daniel. I'll tell it, though it cuts deep. 1970. The courtroom tempest. In 1970, America was a nation on edge. The Vietnam War raged, fueling protests that filled the streets with chants and tear gas. The assassinations of Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. left scars on the nation's soul. Yet in Multnomah County, Oregon, where Michael Grayson served as a district attorney, life moved at a quieter pace. His days were filled with petty thefts, DUIs, and neighborly disputes, a far cry from the high-stakes cases he craved. At 28, fresh from law school with only 4 years of experience, including 2 as an intern, Michael was hungry for a victory to cement his name in Portland's legal circles. But that week had been brutal. 2 consecutive losses in minor DUI cases bruised his pride, and the ambition of youth demanded redemption. I'm Michael Grayson, he'd told himself, standing before his mirror, adjusting his tie. I won't lose again. His next case, State of Oregon versus Marcus Tate, seemed like the perfect chance to reclaim his edge. Marcus Tate was charged with reckless driving after a drunken joyride. When Michael learned Tate had refused a public defender and opted to represent himself, he nearly laughed aloud. A criminal with no formal training, challenging a law school graduate? A fool defending himself is like a fox guarding the hen house, Michael muttered, recalling an old adage. He envisioned Tate as a wannabe Perry Mason, doomed to crash and burn. The trial unfolded in Multnomah County's imposing courthouse, its white marble columns and cold halls radiating authority. Presiding was Judge Samuel Chun, a stern former prosecutor with a limp and a reputation for harsh sentences. Michael strode in confidently, his briefcase swinging, ready to crush his opponent. Marcus Tate sat at the defense table, his orange jumpsuit faded, his goatee scruffy, and his dark eyes gleaming with a sharpness that unsettled Michael. Tate was a black man, tall and broad, with a rap sheet that included a murder charge in Newark, New Jersey, awaiting extradition post-trial. Michael saw an easy win, a convicted felon against a rising legal star. Tate met Michael's gaze, his voice a low growl. You here to lock me up, pretty boy? Michael smirked, unfazed. If Tate wanted to play mind games, he'd lose at that too. 2 armed guards flanked Tate, a reminder of his dangerous past. Judge Chun entered, his presence commanding silence. Known for his disdain for criminals, he fixed Tate with a steely glare. Michael stood to greet him, but Tate remained seated, defiant, until the bailiff nudged him to rise, his eyes never leaving the judge. Then Tate dropped a bombshell. I don't want a jury, he declared. Judge Chin's brow furrowed. What did you say? Jury's a sham, Tate spat. A bunch of sheep led by a tyrant judge. I'll take my chances with you. The courtroom gasped. Chin's face reddened, his gavel slamming down. One more outburst, and I'll hold you in contempt. Michael suppressed a grin, watching Tate dig his own grave. Rejecting a jury meant entrusting his fate to Chun, a judge notorious for ruthless rulings. This'll be over by lunch, Michael thought. The trial began. Michael's key witness was Officer Thomas Reed, a burly, honest cop with a flawless record in traffic cases. Reed swore on the Bible, his voice steady. On February 8, 1970, at 9:35 p.m., I was patrolling Carson Street near 10th when I spotted a car swerving at high speed. I signaled it to stop, but it weaved through 3 blocks before pulling over. What did you do next? Michael asked. I approached the driver, asked for his license. He fumbled, and I smelled liquor on his breath. I had him step out for a sobriety test. Did he comply? Michael pressed. Yes. He walked a straight line, counted backward from 100, and read a tongue twister. Surprisingly, he passed, so I cited him for reckless driving, not DUI. Michael nodded, moving to the key question. Did you check his license? Yes, sir. What was the name on it? Reed paused, then said, Samuel Tate. Michael's heart skipped. You mean Marcus Tate, correct? Reed's eyes widened. Right, Marcus. He said he borrowed his brother's license without permission. Michael exhaled, pointing at Tate. Is this the man you arrested? Tate stared at Reed, his gaze predatory. Reed hesitated. Yes, I believe so. The slight uncertainty in Reed's voice sent a ripple of unease through Michael, but he brushed it off. Tate was defending himself. No lawyer would exploit that weakness. With Chin's bias against Tate, victory seemed assured. Tate's cross-examination was brash. He stood, his voice dripping with scorn. Officer, you sure you didn't pull over some other guy and shake him down for $50? Reed flushed, indignant. That's a lie. I'd never do that. How much then? Tate taunted. Chin's gavel crashed. You will not slander an officer. Evidence, or shut up. Tate shrugged, his tone shifting to a mocking calm. You say you caught me on February 8th, 1970? You drunk or blind that night? Chin slammed his gavel again. One more insult, and you're done. Tate's voice softened, but his eyes gleamed. How you so sure it was me driving? I know it was you, Reed said firmly. Tate smirked, pointing to a sharply dressed black man in the gallery, his suit pristine, his face clean-shaven. You sure it wasn't him? Reed studied the man, shaking his head. No, definitely not him. Tate pressed, relentless. You're sure it was me, even after seeing this guy? I'm certain, Reed insisted. Michael leaned back, smug. Tate's questions only reinforced Reed's testimony. Minutes later, Chin delivered the verdict. Guilty of reckless driving, a short jail term, and a suspended license. Michael left the courthouse, chest puffed, savoring the easy win. 3 weeks later, at an extradition hearing, Tate reappeared, his demeanor shockingly polite. He extended a hand to Michael. You got me good, Grayson. No shame losing to you. Stunned, Michael shook his hand. Just doing my job. Tate agreed to extradition for the Newark murder charge without a fight, a move that baffled Michael. As Tate was led away, his parting glance lingered, a mix of triumph and secrecy. The image of Tate gnawed at Michael. His sudden civility felt wrong. Digging deeper, Michael uncovered a truth that shattered him. The man in the gallery was Samuel Tate, Marcus's brother, a successful businessman with a clean record. The brothers had orchestrated a ruse, dressing differently to confuse witnesses. Marcus had deliberately taken the reckless driving charge to protect Samuel, knowing it would serve a greater purpose. The real bombshell was the Newark murder case. The crime occurred on February 8th, 1970, the same night Marcus was arrested in Portland. By accepting the Oregon conviction, Marcus had crafted an ironclad alibi. He couldn't have committed a murder 3,000 miles away. When extradited, he presented the Portland conviction, and the murder charge collapsed. Michael, the ambitious young attorney, had been played, a pawn in Marcus's brilliant game. Daniel's jaw dropped, his voice trembling. You're saying he used your conviction to escape a murder charge? Michael nodded, his eyes heavy with regret. Exactly. I lost because I underestimated him. Marcus was a mastermind, and I was his unwitting tool. It's the most humbling lesson of my career. Daniel exhaled, his voice thick with awe. Unbelievable. Thank you for sharing, Michael. Our listeners must be reeling from that story. Michael's smile was wistful. I left it out of the book, but I'm sharing it now to remind everyone. In law, never underestimate your opponent, no matter who they are.